Okay, here we go. Let's see what this looks like. Everybody see the share?
Yep.
Yep, I'm going mute.
Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to do a sort of a split screen on this thing, and I will be reading the lyrics. You might recognize some of these lyrics. I've forgotten the guy's name, but he won a Nobel Prize a while back. So anyway, just so you guys get a handle on that. Okay, so lyrics again. I sort of wanted to start this thing with a little again a little self intro. One of the things that I believe is that we are all sort of it's sort of like an environment and genetic thing where I think you're born with a certain amount of talent, and then after that talent you can sort of build skill on top of that talent or not. I know people that have great singing voices but just haven't applied themselves, so they have all of this talent and just none of the application. I'm one of those guys that had very little talent to begin with. My hands aren't meant for being a musician. My voice is probably not meant for appealing singing, that plaintive wail that I'd love to have. But I applied a whole bunch of skill to myself. I've spent tens of thousands of hours on a bunch of stuff. Again, self-taught. I'm not saying I'm an expert, and I definitely started at a lower skill. And anyway, that's just sort of an intro. One of the approaches to songwritings, to me, is communication. We can get into this when we get to performance a little bit deeper, but I think that any type of song, even if you're just trying to weave a mood or you know even if you're not lyrics, even if you're just sort of trying to set a mood, you're trying to communicate something, a chill feel, an exciting feel, an energetic feel. And to me, the best way to communicate, of course, is lyrics. It's why, it's what sort of separates us from animals. A lot of animals sing, but we're the only ones that actually have lyrics to our stuff. Or so we think. Let's ask the whales about that one. So I think the lyrics are critical. So there's a different, I'm going to give me a little bit more room here. There we go. You can either have representational or abstract lyrics. You can focus on something or just sort of set a mood. And here I got Masters of War. Hang on a second, I'm going to read from my tablet because it's a little closer to my face. If I could turn my tablet on, there it is. Come, you masters of war, you that build all the guns, you that build the death planes, you that build the big bombs, you that hide behind walls, you that hide behind desks. I just want you to know I can see through your masks. So that is like concrete representational. Every one of those things is something that we can see and feel and touch. Whereas if you go to all along the watchtower, princes kept their view while all the women came and went, barefoot servants too. Outside in the distance, a wild cat did growl. Two riders were approaching and the wind began to howl. I don't think he's trying to tell a story. I don't think he's trying to make a point. I think he's just painting a mood at that point. And he's using these great phrases to paint that mood. The next thing you can talk about is not only are you representing something or are you abstract, but are you trying to be concrete? Is this a real world thing? I don't think in Masters of War all of these things are happening in front of us, but we know what they are. Whereas like in Subterranean Homesick Blues, let me scroll down. I'm sorry, I'm not keeping up with my scroll here. Here's something that sounds like it could be what you're living through. Johnny's in the basement mixing up the medicine. I'm on the pavement thinking about the government. The man in the trench coat, badge out, laid off, says he's got a bad cough and wants to get paid off. So all of a sudden you're in this guy's world. You are walking through this concrete world of things going on all around him. And then you flip forward and you go through Tambourine Man's world. Though I know the evening's empire has returned into sand, vanished from my hand, left me blindly here to stand, but still not sleeping. My weariness amazes me. I'm branded on my feet. I have no one to meet. And the ancient empty streets too dead for dreaming. Again, he's not in a physical world at this point. He's in some kind of a a mind world. And again, if that's the way you're going, again, what I'm trying to give you is the tools in the toolbox. If you're going towards concrete, lean heavy on the concrete. If you're going towards the impressionistic, go for it. Go into that impressionistic. But when you sort of mix your stuff up, or you're in the middle of a concrete metaphor and you suddenly start making different things out of that same metaphor, and it confuses the listener. And I'll tell you, Mr. Dylan is one of the greatest lyricists around, definitely, but he's an even better phrase writer. And he sometimes gets so enamored, in my opinion, with his phrases that he forgets to bring along the scope of the entire song. Again, I don't think the ones I'm showing you are part of that, but you can hear that in a lot of his stuff. And linear and stream of consciousness. Again, this is another way of looking at it. Are we living step by step by step, or is it more of a stream of consciousness thing? So yeah, let me scroll around up here to Tangled Up in Blue is really an interesting song because it's almost like three different stories sort of run together. That again, because he's so artful at running them together, it sounds like the same guy in all three of those stories. I had a job in the Great North Wood working as a cook for a spell, but I never did like it all that much, and one day the axe just fell. Again, there's a guy living through his life, so there's a linear storytelling thing where here's the past, here's the present, here's the future. Whereas again, I'll go back to Subterranean Homesick Blues. Is he really trying to do a storytelling when he goes, look out, kid, it's something you did, God knows when, but you're doing it again. You better duck down the alleyway looking for a new friend. The man in the coonskin cap by the big pen wants $11, but you only got 10. So again, it's more of a play on words. It's more of a stream of consciousness. Let's just let this thing flow out of us. And in the hands of a great writer like Bob Dylan, I think it works great. However, I think there has been lots and lots of folks that have tried to emulate the Bob Dylan stream of consciousness and basically have not quite gotten to that same literary standard of Mr. Dylan. But again, I just be very careful when you go stream of consciousness because you will be very self-referential. But again, lean into it if that's your thing. There's no good or bad, like I always say. Okay, so next we're going to go through some of the, any questions at this point about that stuff? Alrighty, moving on. So now I'm going to talk about the specific tools, and unfortunately, Visions of Joanna don't fit all the way in there. Let me maybe make it a little bit wider. This is the one that we're going to be dealing with for whoop, oh well, that's it for now. So this is the one that we're basically going to be going through. Just this one little verse is able to sort of tell you a whole bunch about poetry, a whole bunch about rhythm, a whole bunch about everything. I'm just going to read it here. Ain't it just like the night to play tricks when you're trying to be so quiet? We sit here stranded, though we're all doing our best to deny it. And Louise holds the handful of rain, tempting you to defy it. Lights flicker from the opposite loft. In this room, the heat pipes just cough. The country music station plays soft, but there's nothing, really nothing to turn off. Just Louise and her lover so entwined, and these visions of Johanna that conquer my mind. My gosh, every time I read that, just it gets it. You know, to me, that's what you do when you read poetry. You read that kind of stuff and you go, how is that working? What's the rhyme scheme? Okay, so we get quiet and deny it and defy it. So there's a nice sort of a triple, a double word rhyme at the end of each of them. These are unrhyming lines, of course. And then now you get either 4 in a row or you get an A, B, A, B. I'm counting this as 4 in a row because the way it's sung, loft and cough is in close enough rhyme that he's getting away with it. So he's got 4 in a row, and then he's got the one standalone that isn't answered until the very last line of the thing. So there's what you call the rhyming scheme. What's the meter of it? The part I want to focus on is right in here. This meter right here is just really fabulous. I mean, he goes all over the place up here, but he really nails it down here. Tap your fingers as I read this. Lights flicker from the opposite loft. There's 9 count, right? I'm going to give room 2 syllables because that's sort of how he sings it. In this room, the heat pipes just cough. 9 again. The country music station plays soft. Again, another 9. What happens on that 4th line? But there's nothing, a break, really nothing to turn off, and that's an 11. So you see how you set up that, that rule of 3 that I was talking about last time, where you get 3 things in a row that just hammer that rhythm home, and then you break it on that 4th one. So there's good description of how meter works right inside your rhyming scheme, right inside your lyrics. What language is he using? Again, he's got like ain'ts and tryings and stuff in here, but he's also got like visions that conquer my mind kind of stuff. So he's mixing his language. He's even mixing his grammar. He's using very, very informal and then very formal. So again, just be aware that language and grammar has a tendency to draw folks in, push folks away, make things interesting. Alliteration. Let me go to just to that first line, and you tell me how many I sounds are in this first line. And it's just like the night to play tricks while you're trying to be so quiet. Holy cow, we are drowning in the eyes in that thing, and it just swims over you. All of those eyes and that triad, which is nearly a half rhyme of the quiet that's coming up, only a few syllables in the future. And again, does he come up with these on the moment, or are these things that I think yes, I think it happens both ways. I think the editor comes up with these, and I think that spark in the moment come up with these. But anyway, that's a type of alliteration. You can do that with consonants too. Holds a handful is a really nice use of that H in there. He could have used any number of words for either one of those two, but holds a handful just says it better, I talked about the internal. He doesn't have any onomatopoeia. He doesn't have any bangs or pows in here, but that's another really interesting choice. You can use onomatopoetic words as verbs. She really powed me or something like that. She really, I don't know. I can't think of it. Bammed me or something. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a word that's not already sexualized. What perspective? Again, it's very concrete imagery, but you notice, what is this? She's holding a handful of rain, which is concrete, tempting you to deny it, and then the country music station, nothing to turn off. Again, he's constantly flipping into that analogy, into that metaphor, into that world that is above and beyond the world that we're in. What voice is he using? Is he talking? Is he sitting in that room? Is this room he's sitting in and he's observing all this stuff? Is he more of an omniscient person that's sitting there and looking into the hearts of everybody? Very often songwriters will write songs about people and they will know every one of their intentions. And hell, I don't even know my own intentions. So that omniscient view is, again, maybe something to watch out for. It's the one that has a tendency to tell people how they should think and feel, and and giving somebody a perspective of, we're not, feel your own feel for this thing is sometimes a good idea, rather than forcing him to say have a specific response. A good list. Masters of War is a great list one. Again, list. These are a few of my favorite things. There's a bunch of great list songs. And then I wanted to get into sort of the mechanics. Everybody knows verse and chorus, and they usually know bridge or middle eight or whatever they call that little thing in between the two things. There's another thing you can use as a pre-chorus. And very often when you write a verse, you sort of write a verse and then you write a little tag at the end of the verse that leads you into your chorus. That's what you call a pre-chorus. You can drop into that pre-chorus without doing a whole verse. Like say that you have a big long bridge, and you can just sort of tack a pre-chorus on and head right back into the chorus again. Intros. Sometimes you want an intro that is, Dasher and Prancer and Dancer and Vixen. That's a complete different part of the song. I probably got those names horribly wrong. Completely, and you can also tack that on to the end too. If you have, and the moral of the story is, and you get that little coda at the end, or you go back and you repeat that first few lines of the first verse that you finally understand. Again, just going back to what this course was about, it's about singer-songwriters. Singer-songwriters worry about how long their songs are. Some people nail it in at 3 every time. Some let them go a little bit longer. I'm doing 15-minute long things. So don't ask me how long is long enough. I don't have a stopwatch on my stuff. So anyway. So any questions about these different tools, or any other tools that you guys figured out? Good. Okay. Topics. I think there's a whole bunch of, and again, we can sort of dismiss Dylan at this point. This is more theoretical. What is trying to be communicated? And I just sort of tried to list stuff that, again, going around in my head, all the types of songs that I know, songs that are based on the passion of the person, the romance, or the religion, or passion in your country, or your pride in your team, or your job, or your personal experiences. I think angst and anger are also great songwriters. Every time I would get angry at my wife, I'd go off and write a song, and she'd look at the lyrics and go, "This isn't me." And I go, "No, but the emotion was really needed. Thank you very much for making me mad." I went off and wrote a great rock song. So living with songwriters is not, living with writers, I guess, is not a good idea. Okay, so again, what's the point of view of the person? Are you trying to tell a story? Are you trying to persuade somebody? Are you just trying to state an opinion and you don't care what the other person does? The ones that I like, I just finished writing a Devil's Advocate where Zeus tells everybody, I believe in the caste system because some are born to serve and some are born to rule. And he makes a very convincing argument that the caste system is the better way to do it because that seems to be what functions well. So, and how much do you get into that devil's advocate when you're talking about it?
So yeah.
And if you look at the fourth part of my songwriting thing is the performance, because I don't think a song is a song until it is performed, whether that's a recording or a live performance that is actually performable. And again, that's coming from the singer-songwriter perspective.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. If you need to have a better singer sing your song, get a better singer to sing your song.
Authenticity.
I pull it apart. Show up in 4 weeks, and I pull it apart a little bit. But yeah, we could talk about performance then. A drinking song doesn't need a good performance. It just needs more alcohol. So there's certain songs that stand the test of grime. Okay, so functional songs, work songs, definitely, and there's learning songs. Everybody knows their ABC probably from some song somewhere. Community songs, again, coming together and doing stuff. They're functionally drinking. Songs are always helpful in drinking. And again, I think seduction is a good function for a song. I've been writing more seduction songs in my later years and no one to share them with. So it's I wish I wrote more seduction songs earlier in my life. Fun songs. Sometimes you just do it for the absolute fun of it. You got some funny things that fit together and it's fun. A dance song. Who cares about the lyrics? Everybody dance now, Wang Chung tonight. And that kind of stuff. You don't need a heck of a lot of lyrics for that kind of stuff. Tongue twister. I've written a few tongue twister. I even wrote a game song. I wrote a song called the Zipper Song, where you know how people are supposed to merge on the freeway in a zipper. You know, everybody sort of gives one person. I wrote like a game song about. Haven't written a riddle song though. That's, you know, and of course we've all written satire songs at one point or another, whether we wanted to or not. Um, other questions about topics? Again, we're specifically about what topics are being written about. Good broad smattering of it. Okay, so what does it mean, and what do I want it to mean? Very often, the impression of the song, like separating a homesick blues, when you're reading through that, it is just nonstop barrage of words coming at you, and it makes you anxious. It makes you know there's something wrong going on, and it's happening all around you, and God knows when, but you're doing it again, and it just rolls over you. And the sound of the words, again, you know, that whole, you know, basement, you know, pavement, government, they're all very percussive sounding words. And by using those words, he gets across that angst and that percussiveness. Connection. Here's don't think twice, it's all right. But I wish there was something you would do or say to try to make me change my mind and stay, but we never did too much talking anyway. Don't think twice, it's all right. It's not a good person necessarily, but I think we can all sort of relate to it. You know, we've got that in us at some times. That was maybe a momentary flash of my perspective that felt the same way. It's like, this is just way too much trouble. Why am I still here? So, you know, we can make that connection to it, even if it's a bad person or even if it's a dubious quality. Overlay. There's experiences associated with the song. I'm going to read this from my tablet here. Yes, how many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? Yes, and how many ears must one man have before he can hear people cry? Yes, and how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. What a desolate song. What an absolute... There is no answer to these things. The answer is always blowing in the wind. And yet, what do we associate with this? I associate Peter, Paul, and Mary standing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial with the Civil Rights Movement and that victorious time that they were singing, you know what, but the answer is going to be blowing in the wind 40 years later or 60 years later, however many years later we are. And it's like, you know, the song isn't about the solution. It's about the fact that that we can't find the solution, that the solution is just out of our reach. And yet the overlay of the song is this, everybody sings this triumphant song. That overlay is a bit of a disconnect there. I always like that about that. The other one, interpretation. What do people think it is? This one here. I saw a newborn baby with wolves all around it. I saw a highway of diamonds with nobody on it. I saw a black branch with blood that kept a dripping. I saw a room full of men with their hammers bleeding. I saw a white ladder all covered with water. I saw 10,000 talkers whose tongues were all broken. I saw guns and sharp swords in the hands of young children. Wow, what does that mean? I have no idea. But I'm sure there's somebody that's gone through and tried to parse out what each one of those things mean. And I don't know if you necessarily have to, but if you have that internally, if you know what those things mean internally, again, that will help out with your performance. There's I think where a connection happens with lyrics that are complex lyrics, which is why I think drama lyrics work so well, why people always pull stuff out of musicals and makes hits out of them, because if you got the context already in there, you know what the words all mean. To me, there's a much more powerful than that than just this barrage of wonderful phrases that I have no idea what we're talking about, but I know it's bad. I know we're in for a world of hurt, but anyway, that's Anything else about how do you make people understand what it means? You know, I don't know how to make people understand unless you do an intro or you make it explicit inside the song. And maybe you don't need it. Like you said, for a mood, I don't think you need it. You know, I don't need to know anything about moon dance other than we're marvelous night for a moon dance. You know, I don't need to be behind the rainbow wall with you. This is a different world, which leads us to the world building. I think that every time you write a song, you get the chance of building a new world. The night they drove Old Dixie down, that is a world I had never been to before hearing that song. Here's somebody that lived in the South, that fought and gave a full-throated support for the South, and maybe believed that the South should rise again. And I'm listening to him singing a song. That was a really odd thing when that came out in the early '70s. And you know, you could tell that Robbie Robertson researched this subject and put this social and political and cultural and some probably personal and definitely some literary kind of context on top of that thing, building up that world that we were living in, and locations and dates. And if you can get a quote from a person as part of your lyrics, holy cow, that is a real powerful hinge pin for hanging lyrics off of. And the names of people and whatnot. I get it. Just anytime I get to write a song, I get to build a new world. And I try to take full advantage of that. Try to give it depth and life and breadth, and not just here's a song I sing, because the words came into my head and the chords were fun to play. You know, sometimes that's enough, but maybe the older I get, looking for significance. Anyway, here's a couple of tricks. And again, I am not a guy for cliches. I think you should try to write your own cliches. Again, the way I phrase it is, if all you do is pull in a bunch of stuff that people already know, you're just assembling, not necessarily writing. Again, that's my own personal opinion. I'm a bit of a snob that way. But again, and I know folks do different things. It's not good or bad. Again, it's just my own personal choice. I've decided, and I write cliche songs? Heck yeah, I wrote cliche songs a lot, and I probably still drop them in here and there. The thing about cliches is you instantly have a hook of familiarity with everybody in there. So if you drop one in there, you're all of a sudden, if I use the word Bojangles in a song, everybody would immediately know who that person was. You know what I mean? I don't have to, quote the music or anything other than the name. Or if I want, I can't think of a good example right now. There's a lot of folks that have written like a cliche song, but the cliche is the one thing that sort of stands out, or they take that cliche and they stand it on the head and stuff like that. I think that stuff is fine. And like I said, I don't want to tell you how to write a song. I'm just giving you tools. Write away from your instrument. If you're strumming your instrument, you are going to be influenced by that instrument. And I think you write better melodies away from your main instrument, and I think you write better lyrics away from your main instrument. Write them when you're on your feet, when you're walking around, when you're doing something like that. What I always say is, if you write it when you're on a walk and you remember it till you get home, instantly they're memorable lyrics because you remembered them all the way home. So I've written songs on a car ride, and they keep popping up in my head along the car ride, and it's like, boy, that's gonna make a good song because it just keeps popping up and popping up. So last thing, like I said, find yourself a vocalist, find yourself a lyricist. I need to find myself a mix engineer, obviously. I do not have the skill for a mix engineer. I wish I did. I'm not getting it. I hear the difference, but to me it's the difference between a 75-cent cup of coffee and a $3 cup of coffee. I'll take the 75-cent one, thanks. You know, I need to get different ears to be able to hear the fundamental differences that you guys are hearing. So I take my hats off to you. I'm a rank amateur. I need to find myself a mixed guy, but yeah, finding a lyricist is a good idea, and that you can tell them your ideas, and they will write you lyrics, and they will work with you, and they will write to the beat of your melodies if you got a melody for them to write to. It's wonderful stuff. Anyway, I've written with several lyricists in the past, and always been very rewarding. Always different. Always different. You know, it starts off with I go away and then I come back, and by the end of it, it's all changed again. So it's a different kind of collaboration, more iterative. But that's the bottom of my page.